I'm Heather, 28 years old, and my life has been a shadow cast by my sister's spotlight. Every step, every breath was measured against her perfection, but last month at our family's Thanksgiving dinner, something inside me shattered. The table was packed with relatives when my sister, drunk on wine, spilled her glass on the carpet and pointed at me. "Clean it up, you're good at that." My mom nodded, smirking. "She's right, you've always been her little helper." My aunt laughed, egging it on. My dad sat silent as he had for 28 years. Then my sister kicked off her fancy red-soled heel, tossing it my way. "Clean this too." I grabbed that shoe, locked eyes with her, and flung it toward her face before dropping it in the trash. "Clean it yourself," I said, voice steady. 28 years as this family's slave is over. I walked out, their stunned silence trailing me. A week later, 45 missed calls from my mom begging about something wrong with your sister. I texted back 3 words: "The slave's busy. If it were you, would you make them pay or give them a chance to make things right? Comment below and let's debate." That rage had simmered since my earliest memories. Growing up in a working-class suburb of Chicago, our home was a modest brick house where the living room served as a showcase for my sister's accomplishments. Photos of her dominated the walls, her Harvard acceptance letter framed in gold, law school awards, polished weekly graduation cap tossed high in celebration. My single school picture was pushed to a dark corner behind a stack of her certificates. My mother, Patricia, built her world around being my sister's champion, a former secretary who poured her unfulfilled dreams into her eldest daughter. She would say things like, "Look at your sister, so beautiful, so smart, so successful. You should try to be more like her." My father, Gregory, worked long hours as a mechanic and came home exhausted. He never challenged the obvious preference, offering only occasional quiet nods when I showed him something I'd done. His silence felt like agreement, leaving me to navigate the imbalance alone. The pattern started early. At age 8, I brought home a first-place ribbon from the school math competition. My teacher had praised my quick calculations, but when I showed it to my mother, she glanced briefly and set it aside. "That's nice, Heather. Now go help your sister with her homework. She has an important test tomorrow." Instead of celebration, my achievement became a footnote to her needs. From then on, my daily routine revolved around service. I woke up before everyone to prepare her breakfast, perfectly toasted bagels with cream cheese, just how she liked them. I packed her lunch with notes I'd write to make her smile, then cleaned her room while she got ready for school. It was presented as my responsibility. "You're the younger sister," my mother explained. "It's your job to support her. That's how families work." I learned to anticipate her wants without being asked, turning invisibility into survival. Meanwhile, my sister enjoyed every advantage. She had private tutoring sessions 3 times a week to maintain her straight A's, piano lessons that filled the house with music I wasn't allowed to join, and designer clothes bought on shopping trips I tagged along for, carrying bags while she tried on outfits. At 16, she got a brand new car for her birthday, shiny red with all the features. I wore her hand-me-downs, faded and too big, and started working part-time at a local diner from age 14 to buy my own school supplies. I walked 2 miles to school in the rain because the car was for her activities. No one questioned this divide. It was just how things were. Family dinners became regular reminders of my place. Relatives would gather around the table, and conversation inevitably turned to her latest triumphs. Aunts and uncles asked about her grades, her friends, her future plans. If I mentioned something like a good test score or a project I'd completed, the topic shifted back quickly. "That's wonderful, but did you hear your sister got selected for the debate team?" My mother would interject, her eyes lighting up only for those stories. My contributions were dismissed or reframed as benefits from her example. When I built a simple budget tracker for a class assignment showing how to manage allowance money, it was credited to learning from your sister's discipline. Never mind that I created it alone late at night after finishing chores. The emotional weight built quietly. Teachers at school knew me only as her sibling, expecting me to match her charisma, but fading when I didn't. I became the reliable one, the girl who helped with group projects but never led them. Socially, her friends treated me like an extension of her, asking me to run errands or cover for her plans. I internalized it all, downplaying my interests before anyone could criticize. Reading books on investing and economics became my private escape, hidden under my bed, away from judgment. Those pages offered logic and possibility in a world where my value seemed conditional on usefulness to others. By middle school, the divide felt permanent. She collected academic honors effortlessly, her name in the local paper for spelling bees and science fairs. My efforts went unnoticed. When I saved enough from my job to buy a used calculator for advanced math, my mother questioned the expense. "We need to save for your sister's college fund," she said, despite my father's steady income covering basics. That same month they spent hundreds on her prom dress and limo. I attended my own events alone, riding the bus while she was driven in style. The favoritism extended to discipline too. If something went wrong, a broken vase or missed curfew, it fell on me first. "You should know better," came the lectures even when evidence pointed elsewhere. My father might pat my shoulder later in private, whispering, "Good job on that test last week," but he never spoke up during the moments that mattered. His kindness was hidden, like he feared rocking the boat more than protecting me. As I approached high school, I started questioning the system internally. Why did her path get all the resources while mine got scraps? I threw myself into studies, earning solid grades in math and economics classes that fascinated me. But even those successes were minimized. A B+ on a tough exam drew sighs. If you'd focus like your sister, that would be an A. Her straight A's were effortless, mine hard-won but undervalued. Looking back, those years shaped my resolve. The constant service and dismissal planted seeds of independence I nurtured in secret. While the house celebrated her every milestone, I built my own foundation, one calculation, one saved dollar at a time. It wasn't rebellion yet, just quiet preparation for the day I'd step out from under that weight. By high school, I was finding ways to carve my own path. The public library became my sanctuary, a quiet escape where I pored over books by Warren Buffett and Robert Kiyosaki, learning about stock markets and investments. Those pages offered a world where logic ruled, not favoritism. My mother, Patricia, caught me with one once and scoffed, "Those books won't make you a better woman. Focus on practical skills like your sister." I hid them under my mattress after that, reading by flashlight after everyone slept. At 15, I entered a state math competition, spending weeks building a model to predict stock trends. My calculations won first place, but no one came to the ceremony. My family was at my sister's regional debate tournament. Later, I found out she'd used my research notes to prep her winning arguments, claiming the ideas as hers. My ribbon went into a drawer unnoticed. School was a constant reminder of my place. Teachers greeted me with, "Oh, you're her sister," their smiles fading when I didn't match her charm. Her friends treated me like a personal assistant, asking me to carry their bags or fetch snacks during lunch. I was just the younger one, defined by her shadow. Socially, I faded into the background, eating alone in the library to avoid their demands. To afford my own supplies, I juggled 3 part-time jobs: diner, waitress, grocery clerk, weekend tutor, while my sister focused on building her future with no distractions. My mother justified it. "She's preparing for Harvard. You can't expect the same opportunities." Her Harvard acceptance came when I was 16, sparking weeks of family celebrations. Aunts and uncles flooded our house, toasting her future as a lawyer. My parents took out a loan to cover her deposit, calling it an investment in greatness. Meanwhile, I applied to State University of Illinois with a full scholarship for their finance program. When I shared the news, my mother's response was a curt nod. "That's practical, Heather. We can't spend more when your sister's tuition is the priority." My father glanced up from his newspaper, offering a quiet, "Well done," but said nothing else. The gap between us grew wider, her path paved with gold, mine with gravel. Despite the dismissals, I found a mentor in Dr. Susan Miller, a retired economist who volunteered at the library. She noticed me scribbling stock charts and offered to teach me advanced principles: compound interest, market analysis, portfolio diversification. Under her guidance, I opened a paper trading account, practicing investments with fake money. By 17, I'd turned a virtual $10,000 into $25,000 in 6 months, mastering strategies most adults couldn't grasp. Dr. Miller called it a gift the first time anyone had named my potential, without comparison. I didn't tell my family. Sharing felt like inviting judgment, and I'd learned silence was safer. My sister's senior year was a parade of accolades: valedictorian, debate captain, local news features. My own achievements stayed hidden. I aced advanced economics, earning a teacher's praise for a project on market cycles, but brought it home to blank stares. "Your sister's speech at graduation was flawless," my mother said, instead redirecting the conversation. Family gatherings echoed the same. Relatives asked about her college plans, her internships, her bright future, while my presence barely registered. If I spoke up, it was brushed off with, "You'll get there someday, Heather, but she's already there." The constant overshadowing fueled a quiet fire. I started saving every penny from my jobs, building a secret fund for college. Late nights after my shifts and homework, I studied investment blogs and practiced trading patterns. My virtual portfolio grew, but so did my isolation. I wasn't allowed to outshine her, not in their eyes. When I graduated high school with honors, my ceremony was overshadowed by her move to Harvard. My parents drove her to campus, leaving me to pack my bags alone for state. Dr. Miller sent a congratulatory note, the only one who marked the moment. That summer I made a choice. I'd keep my growing skills hidden, not out of shame but strategy. The world they built didn't deserve to claim my light. As I prepared for college, I carried those library lessons and my secret fund, ready to build something they couldn't touch. State University of Illinois felt like freedom. My 200-square-foot studio apartment, paid for with financial aid and 3 part-time jobs, was a sanctuary despite its peeling paint and noisy neighbors. For the first time, I was judged on my own merits. Finance classes challenged me, and I thrived, earning a 4.0 GPA and a spot on the dean's list every semester. I worked as a campus tutor, library assistant, and weekend intern at a local bank, balancing 18-hour days to cover tuition and rent. My sister, meanwhile, sailed through law school in Boston, her expenses covered by my parents' savings and loans. They sent her weekly care packages, coffee, snacks, even cashmere scarves, while I scraped by on instant noodles and secondhand textbooks. In my sophomore year, I met Daniel, a finance major with sharp eyes and a quiet confidence. He noticed my knack for dissecting market trends during a group project and pushed me to present our findings alone. "You're brilliant, Heather," he said, the first person to say it without a caveat. We started dating, spending late nights studying derivatives and dreaming about trading floors. Daniel became my anchor, celebrating my A's and my first internship offer at a small investment firm. But visits home exposed the cracks. During spring break, he came with me to Chicago and saw the family dynamic firsthand. At dinner, I fell back into old habits, serving plates, clearing dishes, staying silent while my mother praised my sister's law school honors. Daniel's jaw tightened as relatives asked about her upcoming clerkship, ignoring my presence. Thanksgiving was worse. The extended family gathered, and the table became a stage for her achievements. "She's on track to be a federal judge," my mother boasted, passing the gravy. A cousin asked about my studies, but before I could answer, she cut in, "Heather's doing fine, but law school is a different league." Daniel leaned over, whispering, "Why do you let them treat you like a servant?" I brushed it off, conditioned to prioritize family harmony. But his words lingered, stirring unease. He started pointing out the pattern, how I shrank at home, how my mother's comparisons erased me. "You're not their staff," he said after one visit, frustration rising. "You're their daughter." The strain grew junior year. I landed a competitive internship at a Chicago hedge fund, analyzing portfolios for high-net-worth clients. My supervisor praised my instincts, but when I shared the news at home, my mother's response was, "That's nice, but when will you aim higher like your sister?" Daniel was furious. "They don't see you," he said, urging me to push back. I couldn't. Years of being the lesser daughter had wired me to avoid conflict. Family dinners became torture, me serving, cleaning, absorbing comments like, "If only you had her ambition." Daniel sat through them, his silence louder each time. By senior year, I was excelling, named top finance student, invited to present at a regional conference. I sent my parents an invite, hoping they'd come. They didn't. They were in Boston for her moot court competition. Daniel attended instead, clapping louder than anyone when I finished. But the gap between my college life and home life widened. He started pressing harder. "You're letting them define you," he said one night, his voice sharp. "Set boundaries, or you'll lose yourself." I argued back, "They're my family. I can't just abandon them." The tension built, our dates turning into debates about my inability to stand up. I felt torn, love for him clashing with the ingrained duty to my family. Graduation came and I walked the stage with honors. Daniel's family cheered from the stands while my parents sent a text, "Congrats," but were at her ceremony. Her law school graduation was the main event, mine an afterthought. Daniel pulled me aside after, his face serious. "I can't keep watching you disappear in that house," he said. "Choose yourself, or we're done." His ultimatum hit like a punch. I loved him, but the weight of my conditioning family first always felt heavier. We fought, voices rising in my tiny apartment. "I can't change them," I said, tears falling. He packed his bags, saying, "Then change how you let them treat you." He left for a job in New York, and I stood alone, the silence deafening. The 2008 financial crisis hit just as I graduated. My honors degree and Dean's List record meant nothing when banks froze hiring. With no job offers and savings drained from college, I had no choice but to move back into my childhood bedroom in Chicago at 22. The familiar walls, still plastered with my sister's accolades, closed in around me. She meanwhile landed a high-flying job at a top law firm in Boston, buying a sleek downtown condo with a skyline view. My mother, Patricia, didn't miss a chance to point it out. Your sister planned her career better, she'd say, passing me laundry to fold. Finance was a risky choice. My father, Gregory, stayed quiet, tinkering in the garage to avoid the tension. Returning home felt like stepping back into a cage. I was thrust into old roles, cooking dinners, running errands, cleaning up after family gatherings. My sister, home for holidays, treated me like her personal assistant, demanding I organize her work files or pick up her dry cleaning. You're living here rent-free, my mother justified. Contribute something useful. The expectation was clear, my presence was a burden, my purpose to serve. When I mentioned job applications, she waved it off. Maybe try something stable like secretarial work. Not everyone's cut out for big careers. The dismissal stung, but worse was the silence from my father, who avoided my eyes when I passed him in the hall. The breakup with Daniel made it unbearable. He'd moved to New York for a trading job, unwilling to watch me shrink back into the family's shadow. Our last call ended with him saying, "I can't stay if you won't fight for yourself." The line went dead, and so did a piece of me. I threw myself into job searches, sending hundreds of resumes, but the market was brutal. Each rejection email felt like proof I'd never escape. Then came Victor, a senior advisor at a struggling Chicago financial firm, where I landed an entry-level role after 5 months of searching. The pay was barely above minimum wage, crunching numbers for small business clients, but Victor saw something in me. "You think like a strategist," he said after I streamlined a client's budget, cutting their costs by 10%. He gave me unconventional tasks, analyzing market shifts, drafting investment plans, things most new hires didn't touch. Off hours, he connected me with freelance clients needing personal financial advice. I worked late into the night, building budgets and portfolios for small investors, earning fees that quickly outpaced my sister's law firm salary. I didn't tell a soul. Keeping my success secret was deliberate. At home, I played the broke graduate, nodding when my mother compared my unstable job to my sister's secure career. I funneled every dollar into a hidden savings account, growing it steadily while living frugally in their basement. My sister's visits became showcases of her arrogance. She'd toss her coat at me, expecting me to hang it, or complain about her stressful cases while I washed dishes. My mother enabled it, saying, "She works so hard, Heather. Help her out." I bit my tongue, but each demand fueled a growing fire. My father's health added pressure. A heart condition surfaced, requiring expensive tests not covered by insurance. Medical bills piled up, and my mother's stress turned into pointed comments. "If only you had a real job you could help," she'd sigh, ignoring that I was quietly banking thousands. Victor pushed me further, teaching me advanced investment strategies, hedging options, trading that multiplied my freelance income. By 6 months in, I was earning more than my sister's starting salary, sometimes pulling $10,000 in a single month from high net worth clients. I kept it all hidden, stashing funds in investments and planning my exit. The double life took its toll. By day, I was a nobody in their eyes, fetching coffee or folding laundry. By night, I was a financial powerhouse, advising clients who trusted my instincts. The contrast sharpened my resentment. Every time, Jorge, every chore, every comparison stoked a quiet rage. I wasn't ready to break free yet, but I was building an empire. They couldn't see one that would soon turn their world upside down. 3 years after moving home, a Seattle investment firm changed everything. They had hunted me for a senior analyst role, offering $180,000 annually plus bonuses. I accepted, packed my bags, and left Chicago without telling my family the full truth. To them, I was still scraping by at a shaky finance job. In reality, I bought a modern 3-bedroom house in Seattle's Capitol Hill, complete with a view of the Sound. My personal investment portfolio hit $500,000 by age 26, built on disciplined trading and freelance work. I flew back for the holidays wearing old clothes and dodging questions about my career. Still figuring things out, I'd mumble, letting them assume I was barely afloat. Meanwhile, my sister's perfect life began to crack. Her marriage to a corporate lawyer unraveled when he discovered her secret credit card debts, tens of thousands spent on designer bags and luxury trips. A malpractice lawsuit hit her law firm, accusing her of mishandling client funds. The legal fees piled up and her condo payments became unmanageable. During a rare phone call, she hinted at borrowing money from our parents, her voice strained. My mother, Patricia, still bragged about her to neighbors, unaware of the mess. I kept silent, my success a shield I wasn't ready to show. In Seattle, I met Ryan, a tech entrepreneur running a startup focused on sustainable energy. We connected at a finance conference where I spoke on market trends. He admired my clarity, asking sharp questions that turned into coffee, then dinner. Unlike Daniel, Ryan didn't know my family's baggage and saw me for who I was, a strategist, not a servant. We spent weekends hiking Rainier or crunching numbers for his company's expansion. When he asked why I never mentioned my achievements to my family, I shrugged. They wouldn't get it. He frowned but didn't push, letting me keep my walls up. Back home, my father's health worsened. His heart condition required surgery costing $80,000 uncovered by insurance. My mother's calls grew frantic, mentioning mortgage struggles and the risk of losing their house. My sister, drowning in her own debt, couldn't help. My aunt, always quick to meddle, suggested I take out a loan since I didn't have big expenses. The irony burned. I could have paid cash twice over but let them think I was broke. Their assumptions fed my resolve to stay hidden, my success a private rebellion. Thanksgiving brought the breaking point. I flew to Chicago, bracing for the usual routine. The dining room was packed with relatives, the air thick with tension. My sister, visibly stressed and half-drunk, knocked over her wine glass, staining the rug. "Clean it up, Heather," she snapped. "You're used to it." My mother nodded, smirking. "She's always been good at the little tasks." My aunt chuckled, adding, "Perfect for helping her sister." My father stared at his plate, silent as ever. Then my sister kicked off her red-soled heel, tossing it toward me. "Polish this while you're at it," she said, voice dripping with disdain. I picked up the shoe, heart pounding, and locked eyes with her. Without a word, I flung it toward her face, letting it land in the trash can by the door. "Clean it yourself," I said. 28 years of being your slave ends now." I grabbed my coat and walked out, their stunned faces frozen behind me. The week after I walked out was chaos. My phone buzzed with 45 missed calls and voicemails from my mother, starting angry, then desperate. "Heather, we need you. Something's wrong with your sister," one message pleaded. I ignored them all, texting back once, "The slave's busy." My sister's world had collapsed. A criminal investigation into her mishandling of client funds led to bankruptcy, her law license suspended. She faced potential jail time under a Chapter 7 filing, her condo seized to cover debts. My father's heart condition triggered a near-fatal attack, requiring $120,000 for emergency surgery, money they didn't have. My mother's voice cracked in her last voicemail, admitting they might lose the house to foreclosure. I returned to Chicago for a family meeting, not out of duty but to set terms. My mother sat me down, eyes red. "We're family, Heather. We stick together." I leaned forward, voice calm. "Am I family now, or just your servant?" She flinched. My father needed the surgery within days, or his health would collapse. My sister, drowning in legal fees, couldn't contribute a dime. My aunt chimed in, "You must have some savings from your little job." I let the assumption hang, then laid out my conditions. They would host a family gathering where my mother and sister would publicly apologize for 28 years of unfair treatment. My sister had to admit her financial irresponsibility. My photos would replace hers on the living room walls. No more comparisons, no more demands. "That's the price," I said. "Pay it or I walk." My sister exploded. "You're holding Dad's life hostage," she shouted. I met her glare. "I learned from you taking what I was owed for years." My mother tried bargaining, offering a private apology. I shook my head. All terms or nothing. They had no choice. My bank account could cover the surgery 10 times over, and they knew it. The gathering was set for the next weekend, relatives packed into the same dining room where I'd thrown the shoe. Before everyone, my mother stood, voice shaking. "I favored your sister and diminished Heather's worth. I was wrong." My sister, face pale, admitted her bankruptcy and years of reckless spending, her voice breaking as she confessed to losing everything. I slid my phone across the table, showing my bank balance, the deed to my Seattle house, and a portfolio statement worth over $750,000. Gasps rippled through the room. A cousin whispered, "She's the successful one." My aunt's jaw dropped, her usual smugness gone. I didn't say a word, letting the numbers speak. 6 months later, my father recovered thanks to the surgery I funded. He called once, voice soft, saying, "I see you now, Heather." I nodded but kept my distance. My mother, stripped of her golden child narrative, grew quiet, her calls unanswered. My sister's trial ended with a 1-year prison sentence for fraud, her career dead. She moved into my parents' basement, disbarred and broke. Their house went into foreclosure when they couldn't pay the mortgage, forcing a move to a cramped apartment. In Seattle, I was promoted to vice president at the firm, my salary climbing to $250,000. Ryan proposed during a sunset hike, his ring simple but steady like our bond. Financial Weekly named me a rising star in wealth management, my face on their cover. I bought a larger house, a sleek modern build with floor-to-ceiling windows, and rarely visited Chicago. When my sister texted begging for a loan to cover her legal debts, I stared at the screen. "I'm busy," I replied. "Ask your servant." Oh wait, that was me. I hit send and blocked her number. For 28 years, I was their invisible helper, my worth tied to their demands. Now I'm my own queen, building a life where no one defines me. Queens don't serve, they rule.
I'm leaving you. I met someone, her name is Natasha, and she's everything you're not. We're moving to the Maldives. Good luck with your grumpy mother. The words glared back at me from the screen of my phone, each one colder than the last. I sat in my mom's hospital room, the faint beeping of machines blending with the hum of the overhead lights. Her breathing was steady for now, her frail body finally at rest after another difficult day. Michael didn't even have the decency to call. Just a text, cruel and dismissive, like the last 3 years of our marriage meant nothing. I'm Jennifer, 33 years old, and up until now I thought I had my life mostly together. My dad passed away when I was in my 20s, leaving behind my mom, who I've been caring for since she got sick. Michael always made it clear that he wasn't a fan of this arrangement. "It's not like she's your responsibility," he'd say, rolling his eyes when I had to miss a dinner or cancel plans to take care of her. "You need to focus on us, not her." In hindsight, it's not surprising that he'd do something like this. Michael had always been selfish, but I thought I could handle it. Thought I could help him grow into someone better. I reread the text and put my phone away. There was no point dwelling on it now. My focus needed to be on my mom. When I finally left the hospital late that night and headed back home, the full weight of Michael's betrayal began to sink in. I opened the door to the house we shared, a space that suddenly felt unfamiliar, and let out a deep sigh. As I dropped my bag onto the couch, something caught my eye. The diamond necklace my dad had given me, sitting exactly where I'd left it on my dresser. Or at least, I thought it was the necklace. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. It looked right at first glance, but something felt off. It seemed lighter than I remembered. I traced my finger along the clasp, noting the faint scratch marks that hadn't been there before. A wave of unease washed over me, but I pushed it aside. Maybe I was just tired. An hour later, as I was unpacking, my phone buzzed with an alert. I glanced at the screen and froze. Security alert. Item has been moved from its designated location. I stared at the notification in disbelief. The tracking chip embedded in the clasp of my necklace, a precaution my dad insisted on when he gifted it to me, had been activated. The system had a delay, so Michael should have taken it a few hours earlier. The real necklace wasn't here. Michael didn't just leave me. He stole it. My hands tightened around the fake as I sat down, my mind racing. Michael thought he could betray me and run away with his mistress. He had no idea who he was dealing with. The realization hit me like a wave. Michael hadn't just walked out on me. He'd taken the most precious thing I owned. Sitting on the couch with the fake necklace in my hands, my mind raced through every possibility. When had he done it? How long had he been planning this? The thought of him sneaking into our bedroom, replacing the necklace with a cheap forgery, made my stomach churn. The diamond necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was my dad's final gift to me, a symbol of his love and pride. Losing him had been the hardest thing I'd ever faced, and this necklace was one of the few tangible pieces of him I had left. Michael knew that. He knew what it meant to me, and he still took it. I opened the tracking app tied to the security chip embedded in the real necklace. The blinking dot on the map told me exactly where it had been taken, a pawn shop 3 miles away. My jaw tightened as the anger began to build. How dare he? The realization settled deeper into my bones. Michael had been planning this for a while. His abrupt text message, the way he didn't even try to justify his actions. It was all part of his escape plan. But the question remained, why? I called the pawn shop, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Hi, I'm calling about a diamond necklace that may have been brought into your shop recently. It has a security chip, and I just received an alert about its location." There was a pause before the man on the other end replied, Yeah, we had a piece like that come in this morning. A guy sold it, tall, dark hair, seemed a little jittery." "Michael, do you still have it?" I asked. my heart pounding. Not anymore, he said. We reported it to the authorities when we noticed the security chip. It flagged as stolen, so it's out of our hands now. You might want to contact law enforcement. I hung up and stared at the wall, the full weight of the situation sinking in. Michael had not only betrayed me, he had stolen from me and left a trail of evidence behind. My sadness turned into determination. I wouldn't let him get away with this. If he thought he could walk away from our marriage with my father's necklace and live happily ever after in the Maldives with his mistress, he had another thing coming. The next morning, I contacted law enforcement and provided them with all the details. The tracking chip's data, the pawn shop's report, and Michael's suspiciously timed departure were enough to catch their attention. An investigator from the FBI got involved, and they assured me that cases like this weren't uncommon. We'll handle it, the agent said firmly. A high-value item like this won't just disappear. Hearing those words gave me a sense of relief, but only a little. The diamond necklace wasn't just a high-value item. It was irreplaceable. As the hours passed, I pieced together the puzzle. Michael's betrayal wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision. The fake necklace, the sudden text, and the pawn shop visit all pointed to a carefully planned scheme. I scrolled through his social media, a habit I'd developed to track his erratic behavior over the years. That's when I found it. A photo posted just a few hours earlier. Michael was lounging on a pristine white sand beach, sunglasses on, a cocktail in hand. Sitting next to him, grinning like she'd won the lottery, was Natasha. She was everything he claimed I wasn't. Young, carefree, and utterly clueless about the mess he'd left behind. The caption read, "Finally living the dream. Maldives life. New beginnings." My stomach churned, but not with sadness. Anger bubbled to the surface, sharp and unrelenting. He thought he was untouchable. He thought I'd sit here broken and powerless while he lived out his fantasy. But Michael didn't know me as well as he thought. I spent the rest of the day gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Bank statements, messages, even receipts from the pawn shop that the investigator forwarded to me. Each document painted a picture of a man desperate to escape his failures, willing to betray the person who had supported him through every stumble. That evening, the investigator called with an update. We've traced the funds he received from the pawn shop. It looks like he funneled the money into an offshore account before leaving for the Maldives. We're coordinating with local authorities there to freeze the account and recover the necklace. A small smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. Michael had no idea that the fantasy he'd built for himself was already crumbling. I logged off my computer and sat back, holding the fake necklace in my hands. The rage I'd felt earlier was still there, but it was tempered now with something else. Determination. Michael thought he'd won, but this was just the beginning. The next morning, I walked into the investigator's office with a folder full of documents. My hands trembled slightly, but I wasn't going to let nerves get the better of me. This wasn't just about the necklace, it was about justice. Detective Chambers greeted me with a firm handshake. "Jennifer, thank you for coming in. Let's go over everything you've brought." I laid out the evidence meticulously. Bank statements highlighting suspicious withdrawals, text messages showing Michael's erratic behavior, and even the receipts forwarded from the pawn shop. "This is everything I could find," I said, my voice steady. "He didn't just take the necklace. He's been funneling money out of our joint account for months." Chambers nodded, his sharp eyes scanning through the papers. "You've done a lot of the legwork for us. This gives us a strong starting point." He turned his attention to the tracking chip data I had provided earlier. The chip signal stopped when the necklace entered customs in the Maldives. We've already flagged the item with authorities there, but it's a complex process. International cases like this require collaboration with local officials. Hearing this should have made me feel helpless, but it didn't. For the first time since Michael's betrayal, I felt like I had allies on my side. The conversation shifted to Michael's recent activities. Chambers pulled up a file showing his financial activity. "It's clear he's been planning this for months. He sold the necklace for quick cash, But most of his funds are tied up in offshore accounts. We've requested a freeze on those accounts. If approved, it'll be another nail in his coffin. I leaned back, processing everything. Do you think he knows you're onto him? Unlikely, Chambers replied. Men like Michael think they're untouchable. That arrogance works in our favor. I left the office feeling a mix of emotions, relief, anger, and a growing sense of clarity. As much as Michael's actions had hurt me, they also forced me to see the truth about him. He wasn't just a selfish man. He was a calculated manipulator who thought he could walk all over me. I wasn't going to let him. That evening, I called my mom to check on her. Hearing her voice, frail but full of warmth, reminded me of why I was fighting so hard. She'd always been my rock, and now it was my turn to be strong for both of us. Before bed, I received a text from Chambers. The case is moving forward. Stay strong, Jennifer. We'll get him. I slept soundly, knowing justice was within reach. Michael's Instagram posts became a daily ritual for me, a strange mix of masochism and motivation. Every picture was a reminder of his betrayal, but they also fueled my determination. One morning, I scrolled through his latest post, a selfie of him and Natasha lounging by an infinity pool. Her oversized sun hat shielded her smug grin, while Michael held up a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Living life without limits. Maldives paradise. Couple goals." I scoffed, shaking my head. Couple goals? More like criminal goals. Unbeknownst to Michael, the walls were closing in. Detective Chambers had updated me earlier that morning. "We've confirmed his offshore account was frozen yesterday. He likely hasn't realized it yet, but once he does, he'll start scrambling. That's when mistakes happen." Chambers wasn't wrong. The next day, Michael posted a story featuring a shopping spree at a luxury boutique. Natasha paraded around in a designer dress, spinning for the camera while Michael narrated, "Anything for my queen." But the cracks were starting to show. I noticed his posts became less frequent and shorter, as if he were too preoccupied to craft his usual captions. Later that week, I received a call from Chambers. "Jennifer, we have news. The Maldivian authorities have officially flagged Michael. They're preparing to issue an arrest warrant based on the charges we've filed. It's just a matter of time now." Hearing those words gave me a jolt of satisfaction. Michael had played his cards, thinking he held all the power. Now his house of lies was crumbling, and he had no idea. Meanwhile, Natasha seemed blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. Another photo appeared on Michael's feed that evening, the two of them snorkeling in crystal-clear water. I stared at the screen, wondering if Natasha knew the kind of man she was with. Did she realize he was capable of stealing from someone who had done nothing but support him? Or was she complicit in his schemes, willingly blind to the consequences? The next day, I got another call from Chambers. His tone was sharper this time, more urgent. "Jennifer, the arrest warrant has been issued. Local authorities are tracking Michael's movements now. If all goes smoothly, they'll have him in custody within 48 hours. I hung up the phone and allowed myself a small smile. Michael was still sipping cocktails and snapping photos, utterly oblivious to the fact that his perfect little world was about to implode. Soon, he wouldn't be able to run. His fantasy life in paradise would become the nightmare he deserved. 2 days later, I got the call I had been waiting for. "Jennifer, we've got him," Detective Chambers said, his voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "Michael was taken into custody this morning in the Maldives. Local authorities intercepted him at his resort." The rush of relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. "What happens now?" I asked, barely able to contain the mix of emotions swirling inside me. "The Maldivian authorities are holding him pending extradition," Chambers explained. "He's also being charged locally for attempting to transport a flagged item across borders. Natasha wasn't detained, but..." He hesitated. "But what?" "From what we've heard, she's not sticking around. It seems she wasn't thrilled to learn Michael's luxurious lifestyle was built on fraud and theft. Apparently, she left the resort shortly after his arrest." I couldn't stop the laugh that bubbled up. Natasha, the woman who was supposed to be his escape, had abandoned him the moment things got difficult. It was poetic justice at its finest. Later that evening, I saw the fallout for myself. Social media was ablaze with photos and updates. One picture, taken by a fellow guest at the resort, showed Michael being escorted out by 2 officers, his hands cuffed behind his back. He was wearing the same smug sunglasses he'd donned in all his previous posts, but his expression was anything but confident now. The caption read, "Drama at the resort. Some guy got arrested for theft. Guess paradise isn't for everyone." Scandal. I spent the next hour scrolling through the chaos. Natasha had deleted all her posts featuring Michael, her captions scrubbed clean of any mention of their dream life. A few eagle-eyed commenters speculated that she had already flown back home, leaving Michael to fend for himself. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed with a message from Detective Chambers. "The extradition process has begun. He'll be brought back to face charges here. With the evidence we've collected, it's a solid case. He won't be walking away from this." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something close to peace. Michael, who thought he could steal my father's necklace, my money, and my dignity, was now sitting in a Maldivian jail cell with nowhere to run. And Natasha? She had distanced herself so completely that it was as if their whirlwind romance had never existed. As I sat in the quiet of my living room, holding the fake necklace one last time, I felt vindicated. Michael's betrayal had shattered my life for a moment, but now it was his turn to face the consequences. The day after Michael's arrest, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. I didn't feel like the weight of the world was crushing me anymore. I stretched out in bed, letting the quiet sink in. Michael was gone, and for once the thought didn't hurt. It felt liberating. The first thing I did was visit my mom. Sitting by her bedside in the hospital, I held her hand and updated her on everything that had happened. "He's finally getting what he deserves," I said softly. My mom, frail but always sharp, squeezed my hand weakly. "You're stronger than you think, Jennifer. I've always known that." Her words stayed with me long after I left. I realized that despite the heartbreak and betrayal, I had stood firm. I didn't let Michael's actions destroy me. I fought back. And now, it was time to start focusing on what truly mattered, rebuilding my life. I started small. I cleared out the house, removing every trace of Michael. His clothes, his cologne, even the tacky souvenirs he insisted on keeping. They all went into garbage bags. With each item I tossed, I felt a little lighter, as if I were reclaiming my space, my sanity, and my identity. I also spent more time with my mom, organizing her medical care and ensuring she had everything she needed. Her smile, though faint, reminded me of why I had fought so hard in the first place. The next step was my career. Michael had drained some of our finances, but I wasn't starting from zero. My savings, combined with the funds I managed to recover, gave me a foundation. I reached out to my former boss, a supportive woman named Ellen who had always believed in me. When I explained my situation, Ellen didn't hesitate. "Come back whenever you're ready," she said. "We've missed having you on the team." Her words were a lifeline. Within weeks, I was back at work, diving into projects that reignited my passion. The familiar routines helped me regain a sense of stability, but this time I set clear boundaries. No more working late into the night to appease Michael. My time was mine and I wasn't giving it away again. I also reconnected with friends I had drifted away from during my marriage. Over coffee and long conversations, I realized how much I had missed these relationships. They reminded me of the person I had been before Michael, someone independent, driven, and full of life. Every evening I spent time journaling, reflecting on my journey. The entries weren't always positive. There were still moments of anger and sadness, but they were honest. Writing helped me process everything I had endured and reminded me of the strength I had found within myself. One night, as I was flipping through old photos, I came across a picture of my dad. He was grinning at the camera, the sunlight catching the necklace that now rested safely in my jewelry box. "I did it, Dad," I whispered, holding the photo close. "I didn't let him win." The next day I made a promise to myself. No more living in the past. Michael's chapter in my life was over. Now it was time to focus on me, my mom, and the future we still had ahead of us. It was a quiet evening when I got the message. At first I didn't recognize the number. The text read, "Jennifer, this is Natasha. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to tell you something. Please call me." I stared at the screen, my initial reaction a mix of anger and disbelief. Natasha, the woman who had helped Michael shatter my life, was now reaching out? The nerve. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. With a deep breath, I dialed the number. She answered almost immediately, her voice trembling. "Jennifer, thank you for calling. I'm so sorry for everything," Natasha began, her words tumbling over one another. I didn't know the full extent of what Michael had done. I didn't respond right away, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable. "What do you want, Natasha?" She sighed, and I heard something that sounded like genuine regret. "When I met Michael, he told me you were the one who wanted the divorce, that you were controlling, that you prioritized your mom over him, and that you were emotionally cold." I clenched my jaw, the old familiar anger bubbling up. "And you believed him?" "I did," she admitted. "At first. But over the past few weeks, I started noticing inconsistencies. He lied about so many things, Jennifer, about his finances, about why he left you, even about how he got the necklace. When I found out it was stolen, I couldn't look at him the same way." There was a pause, and then she added, "I left him the day he was arrested. I flew back home, and I've been trying to make sense of everything since. I felt like you deserved to know." I let out a bitter laugh. "And what do you expect from me? Forgiveness? Sympathy?" "No," Natasha said quickly. "I don't deserve that. I just wanted to apologize. And to tell you that Michael didn't just hurt you. He hurt me too in ways I didn't realize until it was too late. He's a master manipulator." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, I considered the weight of them. I didn't trust her, not completely, but I could see the cracks in her confidence. Michael had used her, just as he'd used me. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally, my tone clipped but civil. "But this doesn't change anything. I'm moving on from Michael, and I suggest you do the same." Natasha let out a shaky breath. "I will. Thank you for listening." When the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at my phone. A part of me felt validated. Michael's lies had caught up to him in every way possible, but I wasn't going to dwell on Natasha's words or her remorse. This wasn't about her or Michael anymore. It was about me reclaiming my life. I got up and put my phone away, focusing instead on the future I was building. Michael's betrayal had once consumed me, but now it was nothing more than a chapter I had already closed. The call came on a crisp Tuesday morning. Detective Chambers' familiar voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Jennifer, I have good news," he said. "The necklace has been officially recovered and is being returned to you. It should be back in your possession by the end of the week." For a moment I couldn't speak. Relief washed over me, mixed with a profound sense of closure. "Thank you," I finally managed, my voice steady but full of emotion. "This means more than you know." "There's more," Chambers continued. "Michael's trial date has been set, and with the charges and evidence stacked against him, it's almost certain he'll face significant prison time. Justice is on its way." Hearing those words felt like the final piece of a puzzle falling into place. Michael, who had tried to destroy me, would finally face the consequences of his actions. When I hung up, I sat in quiet reflection. My father's necklace, the one tangible connection to his love and strength, was coming home. Michael's theft had been a desperate attempt to erase my sense of stability, but it had only proven how resilient I truly was. Looking out the window, I felt a surge of pride. I had faced betrayal, fought back, and emerged stronger. The day the necklace arrived, I picked it up from the investigator's office. Holding it in my hands, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. It sparkled just as brightly as it had the day my dad gave it to me. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of resilience, of love, and of everything I had overcome. That evening, I sat with my mom in her hospital room, the necklace resting around my neck. Her eyes lit up when she saw it, a rare moment of clarity breaking through her usual fatigue. "It's beautiful," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's home," I replied, taking her hand. As I sat there, an idea began to form. My mom had been through so much, watching her health decline, knowing how much I had sacrificed for her. She deserved something to look forward to, a chance to create new memories. That night, I began planning. A trip for the two of us, somewhere meaningful, yet peaceful. I thought about the places my dad had always wanted us to visit together, settling on a quiet coastal town he had loved as a child. The next morning, I shared the idea with her. "Once you're feeling better, we're going," I said, showing her photos of the town. Her smile, faint but genuine, was all the confirmation I needed. This wasn't just about the trip. It was about reclaiming joy, about moving forward without letting the past define us. As I packed up my things that night, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. The storm Michael had brought into my life was over, and the future? It was mine to build, one step at a time.